Hey, what's going on, guys? We've got a special guest here today. We have Christian Ray Flores. He's an entrepreneur, high performance coach, and philanthropist. Christian, we're so excited to have you on the hashtag Clocked In today. How did your childhood give you strength?
Oh, well, you asked me that question because you know that I had a complicated childhood. But I I I had a very strange childhood, right? So I moved four countries by age 7 and then to a fifth country by age 14, and then this is actually in America, living in America. This is my sixth country in my fourth continent. And sort of the strength piece, basically, as you can imagine, is rooted in a lot of challenges, right? So I was I was in a position where I observed a military coup in Chile. We were refugees right after that. My dad was in a concentration camp. We moved around a bit. We saw a civil war sort of unfold in Southeast Africa and Mozambique, where I grew up. Then by the time I went back, we went back to Russia, which is my mom's homeland. I was born there, but she's from there. And I also saw the literally the collapse of the Soviet Empire, and again, attempted coup, military is like tanks in the streets, things like that. So that plus divorce of the parents, plus a lot of change, shifting cultures, multiple languages, it really did create a bit of an eclectic mix in me, and just with some choices on how to not be a victim and how to channel that actually for the good, that helped me. um, my very first career sort of effort in my early 20s paid off. I became one of the top artists and pop artists in Eastern Europe, 15 different countries. So all the whole post Soviet space, including Ukraine,
Oh, wow.
all of those places, right? So and I do attribute that first success and then consecutive successes in, okay, how do you interpret trauma? How do you interpret change and difficulty, uncertainty, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So how did that affect you in regard to viewing change? Because I know most people are terrified of change, and
Well,
you must be
yeah,
embrace.
you'll get more acquainted with change. You're not afraid of change. That's sort of a big
Yes.
deal, right?
Yes.
And I think it's not even, I mean, change in general. What we're really terrified of is uncertainty. And I
Yes.
had so much uncertainty, like complete 100% uncertainty, right? When you're like, your dad is a concentration camp. Is he going to live? We're in a refugee facility. We're kicked out. We're kicked out of the country. like, like, where are we going to go? What's going to happen? Zero certainty. So, and that happened over and over and over again. So eventually, it almost like cures you from the illusion that certainty is a very important thing,
Yes.
and that opens up sort of your capability that is creative, entrepreneurial, et cetera, et cetera. So you become much more collective, much more flexible, and able to sort of pivot quickly, um, start things that are perhaps a little bit risky for other people.
Yeah, because a lot of people struggle with risk, and
Yeah.
a lot of people don't
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
that being in the same place can be a risk as well.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, totally. I
currently,
mean, yeah,
yeah,
the biggest risk you can take is not take any risks, actually, so that's sort of the mind-bending reality. And so that now that so one of the things that I do is coaching. One of the things that I teach them is this concept of anti-fragility and how to install that into your life as as a system, as a actual approach, as a discipline.
and that's
And you can totally learn it. So you don't have to like go through a traumatic childhood to do that. So you can totally incorporate that into your life, into your rhythm of life, and reap the benefits, which is awesome, I think.
how could someone implement that? How would that work? Like, what is like maybe a little tactical tip for the
Yeah,
audience?
I'll give you like an example of we already do this in the physical world all the time, right? So we all know that if you sit around, and Netflix and chill and do nothing else, you'll probably deteriorate physically and, get real big and not very flexible, not very fast, and etc. And we all know that if you go to the gym every single day for 5, 6 hours a day, you're probably not going to be able to restore, rest and restore and then build muscle. But if you go to the gym 3, 4 times a week and you push yourself just a little bit, you'll actually grow. You'll get faster, more flexible, and more muscle. It's exactly it. That's exactly the formula. That's an anti-fragile formula, right? So not too much, so it doesn't kill you, doesn't
Yes.
crush you, but consistent and always pushing, daily pushing a little bit beyond your comfort zone.
Yes.
And it applies everywhere. It applies in the physical world, it applies in the relational world, in the sort of, if you're a startup founder world, there's all kinds of things that you have no idea, no clue about, even if you're a great, a bright guy trying to build a company or a service. So it applies everywhere, basically. So anti-fragility is a normal state of being. We just don't use it.
Yes.
But it's basically 80% keep doing what you're doing, that it's within your comfort zone. 20% do something that is outside of it, but you have to do it every day, every single
Yeah.
day. And
Is it?
you develop that lifestyle and you're pretty much unstoppable.
Yes, yes, and it keeps pushing you forward. And here's an anti-fragility moment that we might do real time is that with Edwards Consulting, we have five pillars. So there's mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And
Hmm.
I kind of want to see where you're at because this is what I do with clients. We start off with a 5-year vision and a 1-year vision, and then we see where people are at and then what a 10 looks like. And the reason for this is because with Carlos's work, it's really how to optimize your life, how to step out
Yeah.
of where you're at and where you want to be. So
Hmm.
let's try this out. So for mental health, on a 1 to 10 today, what do you think you're at?
I'm probably at a 7 because my score went at least 2 points down when I was talking to a government official at the Secretary of State trying to figure out some tax thing that they had wrong in the record. And it was just mind numbing. Okay. It was just mind numbing. So, yes, it went down a little bit.
It went down a little bit. I completely understand that because
Yeah.
I mean, we face challenges every day. So
Yeah.
now for you, what do you think is your optimal 10 for mental health? Like what would have to happen for it to be a 10?
Uh, I would say if I double my creative the creative work that I do in the contemplative and physical work that I do, like the
Yes.
workout, that usually gets me to very close to a 10 pretty regularly.
Yes. And the reason we want to set up what a 10 could look like is
Hmm.
so that when we're actually experiencing the 10, we're not like, oh, I had such a hard day today. It's not a 10, but you did what requires a 10.
Yeah.
You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because we
Yeah.
always set these hard barriers for ourselves where it's like, get a new client. You get a new client, but then you lost the client, but you said a 10 was getting a new client. So it's like, whatever
Hmm.
these 10s we set for ourselves, we want to keep those.
Yeah.
So now, physical health, where do you think you're at a 1 to 10?
Probably an 8.
Okay. And why do you say
Yeah.
that?
Pretty high. I work out 3 times a week. I walk maybe 1 or 2 miles, 1 to 3 miles every single day. Eat pretty clean. I feel good. Nothing hurts. I'm 55 years old and nothing hurts.
That's
Um,
incredible.
I don't have any fog, any sort of fatigue, mental fatigue. So I'm generally speaking pretty well toned, happy. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's all. And what would a 10 look like for you? What do you think would take you to that
I
10?
think a 10, if I can uh add a couple of maybe 1 week keto weeks a month, like 1 week of keto every single month, maybe one 24, 48 hour fast a month. Um, if I can do some, if I can maybe work with a trainer to do some exercise upgrades,
Yes.
that's probably going to take me to a 10. I can
So,
imagine.
so it's that integration of how do you think of your body over a month period, and what are these things that you can add in, and then what is the knowledge gap that you're missing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So including new systems in a disciplined, consistent way, and learning new things, right? So that would take me to a 10, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then community service philanthropy. I know you
Yeah.
have a nonprofit. Where do you think you're at today?
Probably a 10. Yeah, yeah, well, I do ministry work. I'm part of a church. I speak there. We take care of a bunch of kids in Africa. It's an effort that I started a few years ago called the Ascend Academy. You can look it up at ascend.academy. Um, I've been doing philanthropy literally in Europe, South America, Africa, United States for about 25 years. So it's definitely a central part of my life. I dedicate a lot of time and money and energy into helping others.
So, Christian, you're a very unique individual. Most people do not give it a 10. So,
Right.
what do you think allowed you to have the forethought to have this be a 10? Not that it's a 10 that because I'm a 10, but it's
Yeah.
because over the past 25 years, you've been building nonprofits, involved in religion. Like, how
Hmm.
did you think about your life and set up your life in that way? And the reason I want to talk about this is because there's a lot of the audience who's like, I want to do community service, but I don't have $1 million to go donate because that's what a
Yeah.
lot of people assume it is. So how did you get involved in that?
Well, it's sort of layered, just like with everybody else, right? I grew up, I had the benefit of growing up in some of the poorest countries on earth. I had the benefit of growing up poor and experiencing poverty firsthand, not extreme poverty, thankfully, but definitely poverty by American standards. The other element was I I was really inspired when I first started doing music. That was sort of my first professional career. I
Yeah.
was inspired by this. There's two big musical events happened that were philanthropic. One was called Band Aid, and it was
Okay.
out of UK. They play one Wembley Stadium to benefit the Hungary and
Oh wow.
in Ethiopia at the time, and it was massive. And then right after that, inspired by the first one, a guy called Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson, and Lionel Richie created this thing called "We Are the World," which is a recording.
Heard about
Also
that one.
raised tens of millions of dollars for the poor in Africa as well. So, and I, because I was sort of this rising star at the time, I connected the dots, and I remember going, "Oh, so I've lived in those places. I know those places from the inside." And now that I have a little bit of a platform and I want to be like them because they are people who have everything, who have a platform, and now they can give to somebody who has nothing. And that really stuck with me. The other dimension was I got involved in religion and faith. I was completely an atheist growing up. Okay, my both my parents were communists, right? So I didn't know anybody who believed in God, literally, until like my early 20s. And then I was at the peak of my career and I was sort of clinically depressed because it wrecked me on a internal level, on a spiritual level. And I met somebody who helped me understand, okay, this is what's gonna help me. And I was sort of dabbling in different spiritual dimensions before. I was into New Age a bit, but Christianity is the thing that really landed with me. And I just had a great coach, a great mentor, and it just changed my life. So, and that's essential to the Christian faith, right? Serving the
Yeah.
poor. It's essential,
Yes.
it's central. So it became like that really reinforced it. And then I had another friend who ran a nonprofit and he was working with orphans and he was like, "Hey, let's go check out, hang out with the orphans. You're a celebrity, they're gonna be happy to see you, you get to know them." And I would start going to these orphanages and talking to the kids and it just melted my heart. And I basically never looked back. When I saw that I could do something for people, it was just so fulfilling. There was so much joy, so much purpose. And I just never stopped. I did it professionally for a few years, exclusively that. When I moved to the States, we did projects in 9 different countries in Latin America, a national project for the US. And then when I sort of moved on to other things, I still kept it almost like this. And this is a non-negotiable, right? So I started
Yeah.
Ascend Academy a few years ago as sort of my passion project, and I tapped some shoulders with some friends. And you don't have to have money. I didn't have the money to do it at all. Actually, it was probably on the surface a unwise thing to do because I already had too much on my plate. I just thought to myself, there's never a good time. There's never enough money. There's never enough time. You have some skills. And you have a vision that is unique. Why don't you go do it? See if you can put something together. And it just came together. And I've been sort of on this with the Ascend Academy for a while, and we have, very faithful donors. And maybe if you're listening, you want to join, that would be great. And we have a unique sort of signature approach to taking kids out of poverty, and it's super
Yeah.
enjoyable.
Yeah, I love the thing I really caught from that whole story is that you left yourself space. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is like when you were an artist, you're like, I would talk to a mentor in different religious sectors. I had
Mm.
a friend of mine who's like, come see the orphans. Most people are like, I'm too busy, I'm not open to that.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
want
yeah.
everyone listening to realize that you might have even had people call upon you, but you weren't open to that opportunity. So when you're open to
Exactly.
opportunities, yeah, you can really see what's out there and experience these other.
Maybe, yeah, and maybe this I'm saying this to you and you're listening to this. Maybe this is your opportunity. So check out the website. But actually I'm joking, but only half joking. The other thing that happened, which I omitted because I forgot, it was a friend of mine who he was a doctor in Africa for decades and decades and saved thousands of lives with HIV/AIDS epidemic and stuff like that. He was literally a personal friend of Nelson Mandela, right? This buddy of mine, his name is Mark Ottenweiler. And Mark Ottenweiler knew that I had the heart for it, right? And he would email me like once or twice a year going, Christian, there's some needs in Maputo in Mozambique. I know you have a heart for it. What can you do? And I would go, yeah, man, I do have a heart, but I don't have the money. I don't have the connections. I don't know what to do, but thank you. And he would just guilt me into it, basically, right? So at some level, if it comes from somebody who loves you and you respect, guilt and shame actually might work eventually. So eventually, he did this long enough. It's got to be 3, 4 years in a row that he did this, right? And I was like, you know what? Let me just see if I can poke around and see if we can make it go take a trip there. I had some ideas, had some connections there, and it sort of evolved. And it was not easy. It took maybe 2 years to get off the ground, but eventually it sort of became a thing, right? And
Yes.
I think it is true. I think leave yourself open for opportunity. Maybe even this is a sign for you to check out the Ascend Academy, and maybe it's not. Maybe you'll go find something else, and that's totally fine as well.
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference is going from that version of I like the idea, I think there might be something here, to now it's a thing. And that's
Yeah,
a thing that we do. So how do people do that? Because I feel like that's the biggest challenge in
yeah.
life. I mean, like we have these pains, we have these struggles, but how do we go from idea to thing?
Only action, and that's sort of courageous action. That's probably a good word combination because you just don't know what you don't know. You just have a general maybe vector of movement that you want to go to. And there's so many missing pieces, all with anything new that you want to start, that you need to just move. You need to take one step, then another, then another, and then another. What also helps a lot is coaching. So sorry for the plug, but coaching accelerates growth. It
Of
really
course.
does. Like you can get there, but you can get. I'm in Austin, Texas. If you want to go on vacation to Miami, Florida, I can take a car there, or I can take a plane there, and there's a big difference between the two. So
Or
it's
you or you
yeah,
could
it's
take
sort of
public
the effect
transit,
of
which is probably even
yeah,
slower than a car.
exactly.
Or
Take a
you
bike,
walk
right?
there.
That would be depressing. But it's true. And I think time is the most scarce resource we have. So that's why some of the top performers on Earth, they spend like 10% of literally their fortunes and their time and their energy on self-improvement because
Yes.
because it collapses time frames, right? You get there faster. So I would say that's a huge deal as well, is that my friend taught me, opened the Bible with me and tried to, I could read the Bible on my own. Okay, that's walking to a place. But you have this wise older man who has incredible family, great expertise. He has all these insights into areas in life that I had no idea about. So I'm like, please tell me more. And what I would do, and I think that's probably a good answer to your question is what I do is I find myself a teacher, a
Yeah.
an expert, and I become their apprentice. That's what I do. That's the method. And
Yes, I actually did a very similar thing for so I'm Jewish and I have a rabbi. And the
hmm
rabbi is like, "Hey, I want you to come to the synagogue and I want you to do it." And I'm like, "This is a lot. Like, let's slow it down a little bit. How can we do this?" So we started reading the Torah and we would read one
hmm
chapter and he would explain it to me. And
hmm
you see living in the faith and he's got all these children and he's got all this stuff. So it's not that one's different or it's all the same thing. And it's all
Yeah.
this picture of how do you learn is getting under the right people.
That's exactly it. So you and your rabbi, for example, right? The Hebrew, the Jewish tradition has a saying, "May you be covered by the dust of your rabbi," right? And what does that mean? It means that the rabbi would walk, the disciples would walk behind him, and of course, it's a dusty road, and the one who's closest to the rabbi, trying to cling to every word, every action, every reaction, will be covered by the dust that is coming from the feet of the rabbi, and that basically indicates, okay, you are an eager apprentice, right? And
Yes.
in the West, we have no idea how apprenticeship works because it's been dead for
It's
a couple hundred
dying.
years. Yeah,
Dying.
yeah, it's been dead for a couple hundred. I mean, we know the mechanics of it still work. For example, if you're close to your grandpa, you probably apprenticed something when you were young, right? But it doesn't really translate into grown-up adult learning. It's really more post-industrial. You're in conveyor belt. You go to high school, you go to college. They pass you from one professor to the other. Maybe you're lucky to connect with one of them, and he's an inspiration. That's apprenticeship, right? But really, most people don't know how to do that, and that is, ironically, the best way to learn. Like that, there's
Yeah.
data around it, there's studies around it that 10% is formal education, 20% is relational learning, 70% is action, doing, 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 doing. So
Yes.
if you want to accelerate, get a coach, get a mentor, apprentice under somebody. And that's just really hard to do. So it requires a lot of investment and intentionality on your part. But I do that over and over and over again, starting with my basically mid 20s. When I got that big breakthrough, I'm like, okay, I know how things work now. And I now have multiple people that I apprentice under, basically, and I just love it. I think it's like the best kept secret.
100%, 100%. And as you bring that up, funny enough, I just want to share the story so everyone can get a little understanding of how I did it. I went to a networking event back in 2020, and this was like the week before COVID, and I didn't know COVID was happening, but I went there to the event and it was like $40, and I'm like, oh man, like I better get a great meal and I have to meet somebody because otherwise this isn't going to be worth anything. And I ended up meeting three different people, and I got their cards and I followed up. And there was one guy where we actually set a meeting and we met
Yeah,
for 3 hours. This guy's 50 years older than me. He's out of Davis in Tampa. His name's Howard Gordon. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And I just kept reaching out to him. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh, I just want to learn. Like, what do you mean? And once COVID started, we started doing these things every Sunday where we would meet for like 2 hours and he would just do a brain dump and I would just write down everything he was saying. And now we're working on a book together. But the whole point is to get a mentor, you have to be very eager and you have to be
yeah,
very forward. And it's not weird to follow up with someone 8 times and be like, hey, and you also, the biggest thing that I realize is getting them in their stage of life that's right for you.
yeah,
Meaning that if someone's a high-powered CEO, they're going to mentor you from afar because they have many different, like they might respond to emails every couple months, but they just have so much going on. So you have to choose the right people to be the mentor that will give you the time that you're looking for to make that leap and make that jump and to learn
yeah.
from.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And honestly, that scenario of finding someone, being lucky enough to find someone who can really, really change your life, and then being eager enough to actually do what you did, which is the right way to do it, it's just actually highly unlikely that the average person will do it for all
Very,
kinds of reasons, right?
literally all of very few of my friends have mentors.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why coaching is probably the next best thing because at least you guarantee the attention and the time of this person who has been around,
A
who can
hundred
see
percent.
around corners,
No,
and and there's
yeah,
a system to it because if you have a mentor, if you're lucky enough to have a mentor, you need to earn his respect, her respect, her time, his time. You need to make yourself available. You don't have to miss things. You need consistency. Even if you have one, that consistency is probably not going to be there, with very
yeah,
few exceptions. Very, very
yeah.
few exceptions, right?
No, I completely agree because I have like 10, 12 clients in my coaching groups.
Hmm.
And those people that I mean, somewhat mentor, but sometimes like we do coaching together. We all learn from each other, but they know it's a group where
Yeah,
everybody learn from each other, and it's like,
that's
hey,
exactly it.
we're here every week, and I'm going to be there on time, and it's going to be a set time because I'm incentivized to do set activity. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
how do you put all these together? So for you, back to the topic, Christian, for you, spirituality on a 1 to 10, I think I know where you're at, but how are you feeling at that today?
Today, I think probably a 9. I mean, I've had higher levels every once in a while, but yeah, but pretty high consistently. I mean, I've been a speaker, a pastor, a Christian missionary for 27 years.
Wow.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you're high in spirituality, actually, because you can just sort of coast, and many people do. But I do have I have an amazing wife, so we share our faith together, right? So we incentivize each other, we call each other higher. We Sabbath, by the way, talking about the Jewish faith. So I started Sabbathing maybe 15, 16 years ago.
And
And
explain what that is for people listening.
so it's a
They
day
don't.
of rest. It's a day of rest that comes from the Old Testament, and it was practiced also by Christians, actually. And then it sort of faded away in Christianity. It became first from Saturday to Sunday, and then it sort of faded away, which is just a big loss, I think, and a tragedy for the Christian faith, because it was never, it was practiced by Jesus, it was practiced by the apostles. It is the most delightful practice I have in my life. It really is like changed my life forever.
And when
So,
you say and when you
mhm.
say rest, what do you mean by that? Are we talking no phones, no electron? Like, how do you think
uh,
about
oh
what?
yeah, that's a good point. So obviously, there's all kinds of versions of that, right? And even in the Jewish there's some pretty intense versions of that. you know, uh,
I've seen
I
that.
I sort of what I try to do is I try to sort of focus on the essence of it, not on the rules, right?
I like that.
And the essence of it is that it's um, now we're going to geek out on the Bible a little bit, right? So it was given to Israel, to the Israelites in the desert after they got uh, released or exited the slavery.
Yeah.
And I think my theory is that a big part of it was that they were the worth of a slave was measured in how many bricks they made. They were basically they were enslaved by the Egyptians. The Egyptians made them make bricks for the pyramids and buildings and things like that, and that was their basically job. So the worth of a slave was in production, right? The worth of a spiritual person, a son and daughter of God, is that they're son of and daughter of God. It's not in the production. I
Interesting.
think, and I think the essence of the Sabbath is that you stop producing. And for somebody like myself, or maybe some of the people that listen to this podcast, I'm a very, very driven guy. Okay,
Yeah.
like I love working, I really do, and and I like achieving, and I like building. I just love all of it. I'm entrepreneurial. I'm creative. So taking a Sabbath means you stop producing, and what you're doing is you're divorcing your identity from your work. And I think it's one
Yeah.
of the healthiest things you can possibly do, especially if you're a driven, high performance kind of person, is that if your identity is too tied to your work, you're going to not do well long term. So the
Yeah.
Sabbath is a weekly practice of not going down that rabbit hole, like you're training yourself to go, I am not my work.
Yes.
I have divine origin. And the rest part is that, it's God rested on the seventh day. That's sort of the theological framework. And then you rest on the seventh day, right? So there's a symbolic, there's deeply spiritual. There's all kinds of depth to it. But what we do is and the idea is that this is a day where you don't produce anything, that you trust that God produces. He's the author of life. He gives you breath. He gives you life. He produces. At the end of the day, everything you have is from him anyway. So you just trust him. You just release that. And then you rest, you sleep in, you don't diet, you make love to your spouse, you delight in your friends, and you just completely and utterly experience joy all day long. And it's the hardest practice to incorporate because, especially here in America, we're the workaholics, the highest workaholic nation on earth, maybe only rivaled by Japan. And we have the hardest time delighting. We it's really fascinating how hard it is to give yourself a full day of joy. We feel so guilty. It's
I,
ridiculous.
yeah,
It's an actual addiction, right?
I
So
think,
you feel
yeah,
so guilty. You can't enjoy a full day and trust that there's way many layers of mechanisms and stuff like that that give you the outcomes that you think you only produce yourself, which you just don't objectively, right? So that's basically the essence of it. I can talk about the subject for a long time, but
no,
that's
I know,
basically
I know. I think the reason that most people struggle with it and it's a challenge is because we're so programmed to be how productive are you? How much are you moving the needle? How
yeah,
to go to the complete opposite side to say, hey, I'm just chilling today. I'm gonna
yeah,
vibe out. I'm gonna enjoy myself. I'm gonna take a minute and
hmm
take, I don't mean a minute, I mean an entire day. And just really enjoy and relish in the presence of who we're with and what you're doing and whatever that activity is. I think that's an incredible practice to instill. And
yeah,
I
yeah,
really appreciate you sharing that.
yeah.
So
Thank you. Yeah,
let's get to the final one. So relationships is the final pillar. Where
yeah.
do you think you're at on a 1 to 10? And you could take this business, personal, wherever you want to go with it. But where do you think your relationships are at?
I think I'm at a 10. My nuclear family is pretty close. I'm very close to my mom, my dad, although they live in different countries. We call every week. My wife and I have been married for 25 years. We are
Incredible.
so in love with each other. And like we were watching this show yesterday, and somebody said, so how do you keep the spark? Somebody said, I've been married for 21 years or something like that. And I was White Lotus the first. We were rewatching the first season, and the guy goes, "Oh no, the spark doesn't remain. It goes away. We love each other, but the spark goes away." And then we turn to each other, Deb and I. I'm like, "Oh no, that's not true. The spark is still there." And so I enjoy a great marriage. I work really really hard on it.
What are
I,
some tips you have for that? Just for anyone listening who's like,
oh my gosh, I can go for hours.
no, just do like top three tips. Like it
Three
three.
tips. Okay. Your job is to make your wife radiant and radiant with joy. That's your job as a husband. That Take that as a standard, as an aspiration, right? So she's not an afterthought. She's the most important person in your life.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one. I take her on dates every week, every single week. I make her breakfast every day. I take her on walks every night with the dog. She is literally my best friend. But the thing is, it takes so much intentionality. That's sort of, I can tell you what I do, but people are gonna go on whatever, No.
No, no,
It,
no.
it, it
I
takes it takes
completely agree.
decades of effort. Okay, you
It's
know.
the sit. It's the sit. Well, what I think it is like everything to be a high performing machine,
Yeah,
high
yeah.
performing in the workplace, high performing. It's all systems. So like
It's
a
all
system,
yeah, it's all systems. Yeah.
a
So I we
system.
have
Like,
we have couples who mentor us. We go on vacations 2, 3 times a year. We have an international trip every single year. We're about to go to Chile. We go to a marriage retreat every year for 25 years. Never missed a marriage retreat. So it's just on and on and on. There's just so
what's a
many
marriage
layers to
retreat?
it. A marriage retreat, it's just, a church can sponsor a marriage retreat, bring a speaker, an expert, and then all these married couple sort of hang
Oh,
out
okay.
at a
Very
hotel and they listen to something, and then it's sort of a retreat also because you have a lot of free time, and you almost like you go there regardless of who the speaker is. You go there to just remind yourself that you love being married. That
yes.
alone is, so we never miss one ever. That's a principle, right? We Sabbath together, like the list goes on and on. Same thing with our kids. We we planned our business, our lifestyle around the fact that we only have them for 18 years. And what we build on the trust we build, the closeness we build will have a compound interest for the rest of their lives and our lives. So we left I left tons of money and opportunities on the table because I never wanted to miss anything with them. And I never did, actually, never missed anything with them.
Oh, that's amazing.
We homeschooled two out of three, which is a massive sacrifice and investment. They're crushing it. All three of them are awesome. We love them. They love us. They respect us. So we're like a 10 there. When it comes to friendships, I had a season, my previous season before we came to Austin. Man, I was in the desert relationally. I had like one friend, and I just didn't have people that I respected, that I submitted myself to, like apprenticed under. I didn't have enough of that. And my wife challenged me on that, I remember. And I started working on that. So when we moved here, I basically said, this is it. This is going to be a top priority. So I have five guys who I'm in their lives, they're in my life. We see each other all the time. They know everything about me, even the embarrassing stuff. I know everything about them. And I have this amazing group of very, very impressive, accomplished people who love me, and we spend a lot of time together. So I'm a 10 for sure.
I love that. I love that. And how'd you go about making the friends? Because I know some people, there's like a loneliness pandemic going on.
Oh, it's yeah, huge. I mean, church is a big deal
Okay, so
because
you
you
connect
sort of
with
enter
all.
into a faith, yeah, into a faith. You have a rhythm where it's all systems, right? As you said. So if you go to church, you have a system. You have a system like, okay, you're going to see this face and this face. Now, what are you going to do with that? Okay, you go out for coffee, get to know people. Who do you resonate with? Who resonates with you? Who you have your mess up sort of parts where you're a little broken and irritate people. How do you irritate people? How they irritate you? So you have to work through all these layers and layers to develop intimacy and depth of connection.
Of
And
course.
that takes years, right? So I've been at this with the guys for 12 years now.
Oh, it's
And
incredible.
yeah, I mean it's just it's unbelievable. And I help them, I invest in them, I pray for them. They will text me when there's trouble. I will text them when there's trouble, that sort of thing. So, but I would say you make yourself indispensable to someone who you want to be close to. You
Yeah.
invest in them. You're selfless. You invest money, time, energy, effort. You reach out. You say, "Hey, I just want to say I love you, man," and just checking in, that kind of thing. Men are terrible at all of these things. They really are.
So bad. So bad.
Yeah. So that's why just like you have a group in the coaching, I have a cohort in my coaching as well. And the part of the magic is that these guys show up every week and they're like being raw and vulnerable and challenging and encouraging each other, all of those things. And it has a massive boosting effect on their performance, right?
100%. If you can be vulnerable, and because half these people have wins and they don't feel comfortable sharing because they're like,
Hmm.
someone might feel bad if I tell them how much I made, or someone might feel bad if I tell them I'm getting married, or someone might feel bad. Like, and in society, we become so like, oh no, we
Yeah.
can't share the good, we can't share the bad. How are you doing? Fine, everything's fine. But it's really to get those authentic relationships, you have to be very vulnerable. You have to
Yeah.
share what you want and you have to be open to that. And one of the systems I implemented with my wife is at breakfast, we have three things. So the first part is we start off with one thing we're grateful for.
Yeah.
Then we do what are we looking forward to that day, just because it's breakfast and like there's stuff. It basically means like what's on your itinerary today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
third, then the third part is what are three things we love about the other person. And it's just to have a reminder each day that like we share that affection and that appreciation for each other. Because like you said, like I I don't need to hear the three things.
Yeah.
It's okay to me either way, but I know she really likes the three things. So it's
Yeah.
how do we work together as a unit so that everyone can feel appreciated and listened to and feel that comfort. You know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah. I do.
there's so many things we do just for ourselves, but like what do we do for the other people, which I think is super important.
Yeah. 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 So it takes a tremendous amount of energy and work, but it's transformative. It really is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one last thing that and then we'll close this out. So for you, if someone has pain points in their life and they want to
Hmm.
make a change to start crushing it, what do you think they can do? Like, what would be a couple steps they can start doing, taking from this podcast that they're listening to right now? What are some of these actions they can do?
Well, I mean, organically from even what we discussed, I feel like this is the fourth thing I focus on, but I'll make it the first because it works really well, is that your success is by definition multidimensional. It can't be
Yes.
about money and status and respect, for example, or accomplishment even, right? It is you. It's the relationship, it's the finances, the fitness, is the joy that you have, the physical ability that you have, all of those things together, the friendships, the family.
So I
They're
think
as important as the professional development, right?
uh,
So
100%. Yeah, I think, and that's what I like to talk to people about a lot is redefining success.
yeah,
Society is told that success is get a house, have a family, have kids.
yeah, and
We're
and
in a
then
new age.
80% of those people are miserable, basically.
We
So
are in
yeah,
a new age where we can do anything we want. We
yeah,
don't have to work on the farm. The food's there. Like things have changed. And now there are other pillars that allow us to feel success, and we need to excel in those. Otherwise, it's like Christian said,
hmm
he's like, there was a time and a place where I didn't focus on friendship, and now I
hmm
have. That completely changed his life. And you
yeah,
start to realize a lot of these things that what you focus on grows, what you put energy into grows, and it's okay to put it into friendship. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a loser because your version of success is completely different than the other person's.
yeah. And I would even argue that that version of success that you and I are talking about, and I measure that, by the way, 7 dimensions. We have a great assessment tool on my website that's free. We use it with our clients, but we basically make it available for everyone. That will give you an assessment of the 7 main most important dimensions. And the idea is that those dimensions are objectively the most important dimensions. It's not even subjective to you. It's just universal. If you're a human being, these are the things that are going to matter. You can
Yes.
ignore them, right? You can ignore them, or you can just sort of rationalize it away and go, no, that's just not me. I don't need this. I need more of that. But the truth is, you do need all those things to be high scoring, basically.
100%. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me was that those five pillars and figuring out what that was I
Hmm
remember vividly watching a Matthew McConaughey video on YouTube, and he's explaining what success was to him. And that was the
Yeah.
first time I ever heard it. And I'm like, what? I thought just
Yeah.
being in movies was it. And he's like, no, man. It's going to the football game. It's doing this. It's having my family. It's raising money. It's doing all of this stuff and
Yeah.
having all of these. And then you start realizing that to have it a full life is to experience all aspects of it. It's not to sit in this one, hey man,
Yeah.
I made this much money this year. I have a super successful business, but I don't have any friends and my wife left me and all these sad things. And you're like, no, that's not it. The game's completely flipped over. But the first step to do that is redefine what success is to you.
Yeah. And that's why the assessment is a great starting point because you can go, oh, I'm high on in these dimensions, but I'm pretty low on this. I need to make a move. And I think that's a for people who really want to know the answer to what to do next, that's a great way to start.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Christian, where can people learn more about you, learn more about what you're doing? What's the best place?
I would say I'll give you 3 places. One is Ascend Academy, is Ascend.academy is the philanthropics thing. Would love to see people take a look, see if it's a fit. If it's a fit, just ping me, see if you want to contribute, get involved. If you feel like some of the stuff that we discussed today was helpful and you just want more of that, you're not really looking for massive investment, just subscribe to my newsletter, christianrayflores.com. It's my Substack. And I basically drop 2 emails a week. One is free, the other one's a deeper dive for people who want to subscribe and help us with our work. And then we have all kinds of goodies in additional things for that, webinars, etc., for those who subscribe. And if you go, oh man, this guy has the answers that I was seeking, go to my exponential website. It's exponential without the e, exponential.life. And the assessment is there too, by the way, and it's free. It takes like 5 minutes and it's awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.